Jim, great to see you. Thank you for joining us. And I miss you, man. We're both going to be working a lot, but in very different worlds this year. So I'll send you a text during day 2 of the draft. It's a little bit of an inside joke, but I'll bring everyone inside. You and I and Jonathan Mayo, your colleague, have been working together for the past, probably 8 years or so
At
on
least.
day 2 coverage and day 3. But day 2 is a monster. We would do 6-ish hours of live coverage.
Yeah, 6 hours, it seems. Maybe it's 5, but it's 8 rounds of the draft to pick a minute. It'll be very weird not having you around. I mean, I think last year, Scott, we did the home run derby for the high school kids and the futures game, and then day 2 of the draft and day 3 of the draft. But yeah, it's kind of fast and furious. A lot going on in Seattle, and we'll both be working, just not together this year. It's a little bit sad, but I'll soldier on.
Yes, thank you. I miss my dude, Jim.
Jim, what's up, man? Todd Frazier here. How's everything?
Good. Just got to Seattle last night. Going to check out the my schedule's a little bit confused. High school All-America game today. That's what's on tap. So I'm going to check out the high school All-Star game today. That'll be played this afternoon.
Pierzynski and Kratz are there from our side. So give them a hello and get a scouting report. They're 2 of them are coaches. Yep, yeah. They're coaches. So make sure you get some inside info from those guys.
I will. I'm not doing the broadcast. I just get to sit back and watch. So.
Hey, so I want to dive right into the draft here because this is the exciting part. I think it's starting to kind of get a lot more fun to watch, a lot more in tuned, just like the other drafts are on TV. For you, who do you think is going to go number 1? And then I have a second question to back that up to seeing what your answer will be.
Okay. The tricky part is the baseball draft is not just about ability. It's about signability and managing your bonus pool. So you don't always take the best guy or who you think is the best guy, because you might want to take a guy who's a little bit less expensive and then use that money to sign other guys later in the draft who maybe fall. My gut right now, and I reserve the right to change this up until the time of the draft, is I think Florida outfielder Wyatt Langford might be making a little bit of a run here at the number 1 pick. And he hadn't been talked about a lot until the last week. I mean, he was known as one of the top 5 prospects in this draft. We have him ranked number 3. Great year for Florida. Probably the best power hitter available in this draft. Got to the College World Series finals. And everybody was focusing on the LSU guys, Dylan Cruz and Paul Skeens. And I'm starting to suspect, not that the Pirates are trying, the going cheap and saving money is their primary goal, but Wyatt Langford is not that. He's a different type of player, but as a prospect, he's not that far removed from Dylan Cruz, and he may be easier to sign and let you do more damage later in the draft. So my gut right now is Wyatt Langford.
All right, so now my second question, that the Pirates are drafting first pick, right? So they're still in a playoff hunt, right or wrong? Right. So for me, why wouldn't they draft Paul Skeens right away, knowing that they could probably use him in the next couple months here coming up to help them kickstart them going forward in the playoff push?
Yeah, I mean, the one question is how much Skeens would have left in the tank in terms of putting him in the big leagues, because he's pitched more innings than he ever has before. He's had a little bit of a layoff, probably about a month by the time he signs. So that might be a little bit easier said than done. That said, I mean, he is very advanced. I would take him number 1 also. Even if you can't use him this year, I just think pitchers like that come along once in a decade if you're lucky in the draft. I mean, it's unbelievable fastball command, unbelievable slider. The changeup looked incredible in his first College World Series start. Throws a ton of strikes. He's physical. They didn't even use him as a hitter, but he's a two-way guy who was the only player when he was at Air Force as a sophomore who was double figures in wins and home runs. He would be my pick. I just wrote a story that went up on our site today. I think he's the second best pitching prospect in draft history. That goes back almost 60 years now. Second best only to Steven Strasburg, and it's really close. So I'm with you, Todd. I would take him number 1 just because of the rarity of the talent. If as a bonus you can use him in the big leagues this year, sure. But even if I have to wait till next year, that would be the guy I would take number 1 overall.
Hold on, Jim. I think Locane's muted. Low.
Hey, Jim, it's Lorenzo Kane here. Can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
Right. Quick question from me. I'm all about showing the outfielders love. I was an outfielder myself, obviously. But to me, I enjoy watching guys that can do a little bit of everything. And in your opinion, who do you think the best all-around outfielder out of, let me see, we got Wyatt Langford, Walker Jenkins, I think Dylan Cruz. Who do you think the best all-around outfielder in this
Yeah, of
draft
the
is?
4 outfielders that are kind of in that mix for the number 1 pick, I actually think it's Max Clark, who's a high school outfielder from Indiana. I think he's got the most rounded tool set. He probably has a little bit less power, or he does have less power than the other 3 guys, but still probably going to be at least average power. But he can hit. It's a well above average runner. It's a well above average arm. It's a well above average center fielder. So he's actually the most well-rounded. It's just, he could go number 1. Like, he'd been the hot rumor if the Pirates looked to do some sort of discount deal, that he might be the most discountable of those guys in the top 5. But he's also a very, very talented player. Yeah, it's one of the cool things about the draft this year is all 4 of those outfielders and Paul Skeens. In a normal draft, I think those guys in a lot of years would be considered, any of them, the number 1 prospect. So it gives even if the Pirates do a deal with somebody, they're still getting a player who's worthy of a typical draft being the number 1 pick.
My question to you next would be, who do you think in this whole draft, it doesn't have to be the first pick, it doesn't have to be the 30th pick, who do you think right now getting selected by a team has the best chance of making the big leagues right away and to help a ball club?
Yeah, I mean, that would be Paul Skeens. I mean, I don't think teams typically do that. It's not as common as it used to be. But I just think it's Paul Skeens because the stuff plays. I mean, you're talking about a guy who throws, and I know there's going to be an adjustment. He's pitching every 5th day in pro ball as opposed to every 7th day in college, and the season's longer. But you're talking about a guy who all season was pumping 98 to 102 miles an hour with command, with a slider that would rank among the better sliders in the big leagues, and feel for a changeup. He didn't use it much because it's giving guys a break when he does. But we saw in the College World Series, his first start, the slider wasn't as effective as it usually is. So he was just throwing changeups, and that thing was dancing all over the place. So he's got the stuff, he's got the durability, he's got the command. So I think it's definitely Paul Skeens. If we take Paul Skeens out of the mix, the 2 guys that would come to mind, there's Rhett Lauder from Wake Forest, who's a very polished pitcher. We saw him match up with Paul Skeens in a classic pitching duel in the College World Series semifinals. Neither one of them gave up a run. Tommy White hit the game-winning homer for LSU in the 11th inning. But Rhett's really polished, really good feel, and I think he's going to move very quickly. And then from a hitting standpoint, I would say Dylan Cruz. I mean, Dylan Cruz has performed for 3 years in college. He's very good hitter, very good approach, uses the opposite field already. He's not one of these guys who's trying to lift and turn everything. He's already a very polished hitter, pretty good athlete too. So I don't think he's going to need much time. I don't think you'd put him straight in the big leagues. But if you did put Dylan Cruz straight in the big leagues, I think he'd survive. I don't think he'd necessarily be a difference maker from day one. But I think he'd be, it'd be an adjustment because he'd be facing better pitching. But I think he'd be able to survive because he's that good of a hitter.
Jim, big picture question for you based off what Todd just asked. I think one of the ways that the MLB draft can continue to become more appealing is by selling fans on how quickly some of these prospects, even if it's not same season, can be impacting your ball club. We see teams as aggressive as ever, I would say, in calling up prospects at a very young age. I mean, and also some of them shining like Yuri Perez. And also I think even if they come up and they do struggle and they go back down, it's not the end of the world. So I'm saying this because do you think that's the number one way for the draft to continue to get more casual fan appeal in competition with drafts like the NFL and the NBA draft, where, of course, the top picks are right away making a major contribution? Or do you have any other ideas, too, in terms of how we can make sure that more people are tuning in and paying attention to draft prospects?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things. I think what you said, Scott, is 100% correct. Because if I'm a casual fan of a team, it's interesting when the guys get drafted in the first round on Sunday, but I want to know when he's going to help my team, when he's going to help my fantasy team. You're going to have to probably wait a couple years for that to happen. But I do think guys are going through the minors quicker. And when that happens more often, it does get fans more excited. Like, hey, maybe this guy isn't far off. And I think the other thing is, as the popularity of college baseball continues to grow, and it does, I think that helps because your football and your basketball players, look, we all watch the tournament in March. We all are watching college football bowl games and playoffs and games throughout the fall. The college baseball, it's amazing. I've been covering this stuff for 30 years. How many great ballparks there are, how many great programs there are. When I started, you could probably look at 12 or 15 schools and know, okay, the College World Series teams are going to come from those 12 or 15 schools almost every year, and it's different now. We saw Oral Roberts go from a 4 seed to Omaha this year. So I think as college baseball continues to get better, and they have great facilities, and they build more fans, and you can watch almost all the games on TV now on various sports networks, I think that helps too. But I think those are the two biggest differences between our sport and football and basketball, is that those players are better known as amateurs, and they're going to step right in at the major league level, where we don't see that very often in baseball.
Hey, I want to switch gears a little bit, talk a little bit about Elly De La Cruz. Did you see this coming, and where did you have him ranked? Because he is taking baseball by storm right now, and I'm a huge, huge fan of this guy.
Yeah, no, he is. I mean, he was. We graduate guys off of our list, so I don't know if he's graduated yet. If he hasn't, he's been in the top 5 this year coming in. What's amazing about him is he was not a big ticket international signing. He wasn't one of these guys like Wander Franco or Vladimir Guerrero Jr., where they sign and everybody's all excited, and then those guys become stars right away. He was a guy who kind of flew under the radar. He came back from the pandemic. I don't think anybody really knew who he was, and he just keeps getting better and better and better. I mean, he's got to have the best individual tools in the big leagues, right? I can't think of anybody who can do all the things he can do with as much flair. And, I think the thing that surprised me the most about him at the big league level is, I mean, he can be kind of an aggressive free swinger. And sometimes, when you get to the big leagues, for the first time, that can be exploited. And so far, people haven't figured out how to get him out. I'm trying to think the last guy, I mean, it's a different look, but it's almost like the last guy who was this exciting, and I don't think he's a hitter quite in the same class, was Mike Trout, who could do all the different, and Elly De La Cruz, not that it's the most important tool, but he could throw a lot better than Mike Trout could. It's crazy. And this guy just kept getting better and better, and he still continues to get better and better.
Who's the next Elly De La Cruz? Who's another guy that's on your list on the top 100 or beyond, where you're like, he's going to continue to move up? He's got the potential, right? I think the concern was when he gets up to the show, they're like, oh, he's going to strike out a ton. Yeah, he's striking out, but he's fine when he makes contact. Is there anyone else lurking through the minor leagues right now that's just a monster with potential to make an impact like this right from the jump?
Yeah, I mean, again, making that kind of impact right away doesn't happen too often. But like, I look at a guy like James Wood, who's in the national system, who's big and physical and has all kinds of tools. It's funny. I don't think he's as explosive as Elly De La Cruz, because I don't think anybody's as explosive as Elly De La Cruz. But James Wood's probably going to be the best player the the Nationals get out of the Juan Soto trade with the Padres. He's in Double-A right now. Adjusting to that level, but he kind of is in that mold. Jackson Chourio of the Brewers is another guy in that mold. Both those guys are scuffling a little bit in Double-A right now, but they both have exciting, well-rounded set of tools. Although again, I don't think anybody can match Elly De La Cruz.
Hey, I want to ask this question next for you. Take the top 20 out of it here, okay? Top 20 signing guys, pretty much are going to go here or there, whether somebody drops, somebody doesn't. Is there a guy on your radar that might slip in the first round or two, and all of a sudden is a guy that you'd be like, you know what, this guy's going to make an impact? Like who do you think is one of those guys that will make a huge impact in the 4th, 5th rounds per se?
I don't know about 4th, 5th round, but one of my favorite players, I could go on and on, but like a couple of my favorite players, and they both coincidentally are from Mississippi. There's a high school shortstop named Cooper Pratt, who I got some comps coming into the year. He had a great showcase circuit, kind of a right-handed hitting version of Gunnar Henderson. They both played at private schools in the Deep South. They were both, these physical guys, with projectable frames coming out of high school. It's unclear if Cooper is going to go high enough to sign him away from University of Mississippi. But like, I think he's a guy who could slide into the 2nd round. And 3 or 4 years down the road, we're wondering why he lasted as long as he did, kind of like with Gunnar Henderson. He's a guy who intrigues me, and he played really well at the draft combine. And he's not, he's a big physical guy. Kemp Alderman from Ole Miss, I just think has some of the best raw power in this draft. He's a pretty good athlete for a guy who goes about 6'3", I think it's 6'3", 250. But he's actually fairly athletic for that size. He's also caught in the past. He pitches a little bit. He's got some arm strength on the mound. And, it's funny. I think he's probably going late second, early third round. And if you told me one day that we look up and Kemp Alderman's hitting 30 home runs in a big league season, he's got that kind of power. So he's kind of a sleeper I like too.
Okay, Jim, I got an Ohtani question for you. I'm not going to ask you to make trade predictions or give me rumors or anything like that. Ken Rosenthal's all over it, but
he's the best.
I can?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'll leave that to Ken. Yeah.
Yes, but if Shohei does get traded, right? Let's say the Angels tumble a little bit the next couple of weeks and Trout's out, of course. I want to know from a prospect perspective, how far down the top 100 you'd have to go to be like, yeah, I'm going to give you my top guy. For example, Baltimore, you have Jackson Holiday. Let's just say I'm Perry, I'm calling you straight up. Would you do it, right? Milwaukee, Jackson Churio, straight up. Yeah, I'm going over. These are the top guys. These are guys that are projected to be, stars in the game. Ellie's still on the list. I know you said he's going to graduate soon. Let's put him aside because he's in the bigs now. But just going down the list of legit teams that have like Jordan Lawler, another top 10 prospect. Diamondbacks get a call. Hey, Lawler for Ohtani. You evaluating these prospects, how far down a list do you go? And maybe obviously you're valuing prospects more than some of our MLB insiders, but just wanted to get your take on that as we go through the list. Rangers, Evan Carter, top 10 prospect. Like, where are we going here? Bobby Miller for the Dodgers is a top 10 prospect according to Pipeline.
Okay, let me qualify. So are we just doing a 1-for-1 trade, or am I giving you?
Yeah, let's do a 1-for-1.
So Perry Manasian's calling me, and he's saying you can have Shohei for straight up for any of these guys. The tricky part is I don't know if I can re-sign Shohei. So that's a tricky part.
Let's assume not. You're making a run just right now, and that's why I'm taking other prospects away. It's just 1-for-1. We don't have to fill it up with it's not the Soto deal from last year.
Right. And I'm renting him. I'm just getting him, and I'm probably losing him at the end of the year, and I don't get a pick because he traded.
Will you do it for any of those guys? Like, would you do Holiday? Would you do Churio? Would you do Lawler?
I would look at it from a standpoint, since I'm doing it, I'm renting him, Scott.
Yep.
Do I have a chance to win the World Series?
Yes.
Because if
World
I'm the
Series
Orioles,
contenders.
I can't trade you Jackson Holiday and just make the playoffs and then Shohei leaves. But so I think the first guy I would trade, because it's a team that's a chance to win the World Series, God, he'd look great. How about the Texas Rangers? I love Evan Carter. He's one of my favorite prospects. Great kid. Love Evan Carter. But if I'm the Rangers and it's just 1-for-1 and I can add Shohei to my rotation and to my lineup, I'm doing that. So I would say the Rangers at 7, and that's really, like I said, dictated by chance to win. I can't give you Jackson Churio. I can't give you Jackson Holiday. If, that probably puts me in the playoffs, but I don't necessarily think I'm going all the way and winning a World Series.
Interesting. Okay, what about Bobby Miller for the Dodgers? They have a chance.
The tough one for that would be if I'm the Dodgers, I feel like I'm going to sign Shohei anyway in the offseason, right? So
yeah, maybe.
Why do I want to give you Bobby Miller? That one might be tough just because of all the pitching injuries right now. They need Bobby Miller, but the Dodgers would be interesting. I probably would do that, because if I'm the Dodgers, I might feel like, look, now we have the inside track to sign him before he even goes on the free agent market. So sure, I'll give you Shohei Ohtani. I'll give you Bobby Miller for Shohei Ohtani.
And remember, Shohei pitches too, so he can fill Bobby's spot if he's trying to pitch.
Right, but I need more pitching. I need more pitching. I'd rather add him to the rotation. Bobby Miller's one of my few healthy pitchers. But yeah, I like it. So yes, I'll give you Bobby Miller.
That was fun. Go ahead, Love.
Hey, Jim, what's going on?
Hey.
Just another quick question. I know it's been a while. It's been a long time, but I would love to know where you had Todd and myself ranked.
Wow. Well, I will say, like, when I was at Baseball America back in the day, we Jonathan Mayo and I still do this MLB. We divide the guys up geographically. So I've never had the Northeast, and I never had Florida. It's funny. I can still remember at Baseball America, you couldn't write a Todd Frazier scouting report without mentioning, Tom's River and the Little League World Series. And Lorenzo, with you, what I remember, I doubt we had you ranked out of high school, but I know we had you ranked as one of the better draft and follows, because I can't remember the JUCO anymore, Lorenzo. What JUCO did you go to?
Tallahassee Community College.
Right,
yes.
because you were drafted out of Florida, and then you went to TCC. So I remember that. But so I can't remember specifically because I never wrote those scouting reports on you guys.
It's okay.
Basically, Lo, he's saying you're old.
All
We're
right, so
all
let me, yeah. Now let me ask this: where would you have him and I ranked in this draft right now? Are we going top 5 or
Knowing what he knows about your careers,
no? Just
tools.
what tools and charisma?
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'd have you top 5 because I think all 5 of those guys could go number 1. But like, I mean, Lorenzo was one of the more incredible draft and follow stories. Limited baseball experience in high school and great projection. I mean, yeah, if I was looking at him at TCC and could see those tools, I mean, you both would be first rounders. I mean, you probably heard this, Todd. I mean, the knock on you always was, oh, there's an armbar in the swing. I'm not sure that's going to play. It seems like it played pretty well.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I remember Keith Law, man. I want to sit down and talk with him. He talked some smack about me on that Baseball America.
We got to get him on.
Not that he keeps receipts that are 20 years
I got a
old.
receipt on him. He had me pick like 74th. I went 34th, Jim. How about that?
So there you go. Well, Keith wasn't with Baseball Americas, but I know we wrote about the armbar. I mean, I'm sure you heard that.
Yeah,
everybody's like, oh, the armbar,
time.
not sure how it's going to play.
You're right.
And it played perfectly fine. So
appreciate. Hey,
it worked
thank
out
you so much, man. That makes me feel better now.
There you go.
Yeah,
good.
Feel better.
Yeah.
Good feels Friday. Hey, Jim, rest up. I know you'll need it. I'll be watching.
There's no rest, Scott. You know there's no rest. I'm literally going to go over to watch the high school All-America game in a moment. So there's no rest.
I meant coffee up, and I will see you out in Seattle.
Good. Hope to see all you guys. Thanks.
Yes.